Jassy. We have two of my favorite pies, the Banner banana cream pie and the pecan chocolate lace tart. People are always looking for the perfect flaky pie crust, and I was too. In fact, I went through over 100 pie crusts before I came up with this one that I'm going to show you today. But if you don't want to roll and chill a pie crust, there's also a really easy sweet cookie crust that just gets pressed into the pie tin. So join me for some baking magic. I'm armed with my favorite tools for making pie crust: a rolling pin, a coffee filter and rice for blind baking, a flan ring, tape measure, a flour wand for adding more flour, a food processor, and cream cheese, which is my favorite flavor in a pie dough. I'm going to start making the pie dough by adding the all-purpose bleached flour, a little baking powder, which makes it more tender, but not until it gets into the oven, so it doesn't start falling apart when I transfer it. Salt and cream cheese. And you can cut the cream cheese in a couple of pieces so it goes in a little more easily. The butter is in the freezer because it has to be really cold. When you use a food processor, it builds up heat, so this is the secret to making a flaky pie crust. Now I'm going to process it for about 10 seconds until it's coarse meal. And after a few seconds, the cream cheese will have coated the flour and tenderized it before adding the butter. Once the water goes in, it's going to toughen it. So then I'm processing very little. And now you can see when you lift it with a little spatula or fork that there are no big lumpy pieces. So I'm adding all the frozen butter in little half-inch cubes. And now I'm processing until I get the size of large peas. And this takes about 40 to 60 pulses. This is what determines the flakiness of a crust, leaving large pieces of butter. But if they're too large, then there'll be greasy spots that aren't covered with flour, and there'll be holes in the crust. I can still see through, so I don't have to really toss it with a spatula. Now I'm going to add the water and cider vinegar, and that's another tenderizing ingredient. And pulse it a few times. It shouldn't start coming together unless it's really hot in the kitchen. And now I'm going to empty it into a plastic bag so that I can knead it right in the bag. And the heat of my hands doesn't further soften the already softening dough. These plastic bags are another one of my favorite tools. If it looks like the dough is softening, you can take it now in the bag and put it in the freezer for a couple of minutes to firm it up. Or you can put it in the refrigerator and let it stay for hours until you're ready to make the pie crust. I use the side of the bag, which I hold in each hand, to knead the dough. And once it comes together, I could transfer it to a piece of plastic wrap and refrigerate it, but it definitely needs to be refrigerated for 45 minutes to firm up and also to make it easier to roll. Now the dough is holding together, and I'm going to put it on a sheet of plastic wrap and finish kneading so I can test and see if there's a little bit of stretchiness. Because if it isn't slightly stretchy, when I roll it thin and I try to transfer it to a pie pan, it will break. And I don't want to see any huge pieces of butter. Nice streaks like this are perfect. So now I'll lift it up and pull it slightly. And it does have some stretchiness, even though it's very soft. If it didn't, I would continue kneading it a tiny bit more. So now I'm going to get it into a flat patty so it can chill evenly and rest for 45 minutes in the refrigerator. And you can actually let it rest longer if you want to, but you'll have to take it out for about 5 minutes so it can sit at room temperature, like this piece of dough that I have here that was made ahead. and it's been sitting so it's soft enough to roll. I like to use the roll pat because that way I don't have to add as much flour to roll it out without sticking. And for a 9-inch pie pan, I need to have the dough for just a single crust pie rolled 13 inches in diameter, and that's pretty big. But the reason it has to be that wide is because I want to have a beautiful edge. And if it's a skimpy edge on a one-crust pie, it's not so great. Now you'll notice that I keep moving it on the floured counter to make sure it's not sticking. And the minute it starts sticking, I will add more flour with my magic flour duster. Because once it sticks, it will stick onto the roll pat, and it's very hard to get it off without tearing. I'm checking to see the size. I have a pot lid that's just about 13 inches, and I can see it's 13 inches in diameter. I want to cut off the part that's slightly cracked at the edge. Press the flan ring down and then rotate it, and you can always touch it up with a little knife if any part hasn't cut through, because this isn't sharp, but just sharp enough that most of it will come off. And now it's ready to transfer to the pie pan. And you can still see the nice layering and flakiness of the dough. There are two ways, basically, two safe ways of transferring pie dough to a pie pan. One is around a rolling pin, and the other is folding it into quarters. So then you take the center of the point and put it in the center of the pie pan. Open it up and ease it in without stretching, because when you stretch it, what happens is it shrinks back in during baking. See, I'm just easing it in. You see, I have a really nice healthy overhang because that's going to be the beautiful border. And I'm going to show you two different ways of making decorative borders. So tuck it under all around. One of my favorite edges for a pie crust is a spiral, and that may be a little bit more tricky, but I'll start off by showing you the trickier one first. Dip your fingers in flour so they don't stick, and then with your fingers pinched together, press in with the side of this finger and pinch together between thumb and that finger. See, at this point, if it starts getting sticky, you can put it in the refrigerator, but always cover it so it doesn't dry out. And what I do is I roll back the edge and I attach it so that if it does shrink a little, it will hold on and it will keep a nice appearance on the outside. But this crust, and that's one of the great benefits of using the cider vinegar and using the cream cheese, hardly shrinks at all, even without resting. So this is the favorite spiral one, but another one that I favor is when I use just one finger and pinch around that finger with two other fingers, and it gives you a little star point. And just go all the way around like that. Or for a banana cream pie, which is what we're making with this pie shell, it's nice sometimes to have a big scalloped edge because the pieces of banana are large, so it's sort of conducive to this kind of look. And if you have a fork, you can use the tines of the fork also to make a really nice decoration as well. And then when it bakes, a lot of these little imperfections puff up and fill in, especially with the baking powder. So go all the way around the crust, and then chill this crust for at least an hour before baking. And that way it will keep its shape the best. Now, blind baking doesn't mean that I'm going to close my eyes and not see what I'm doing. It means that I'm going to bake the pie shell without any filling in it. In order to keep the pie shell from bubbling up, I'm putting this coffee filter. I could use parchment, but look how nicely pleated that filter is. And then rice or beans. And I fill it up almost 2/3 of the way. And what's great is that the rice browns and it makes the best pilaf afterwards. And now this is going to bake in a 425-degree oven for about 20 minutes or until it's set. When it's set, I can lift away the parchment and it won't stick. And then with a little fork, I make a few holes and I put it back in the oven for 5 to 10 minutes until it's just golden brown. Now let me show you what it looks like when it's finished baking. As you can see, the little holes that were made in it in order to keep it from puffing up are made in a decorative pattern just because it was fun to do it, but you're not going to see that afterwards. Now it's time to make the banana cream filling.